Now, I want to get back to the soldiers who fought in our most recent war in Afghanistan and their medals, the citations they received for risking their lives for our good and in our name. It is outrageous that the Chief of our Defence Force is looking to strip some of these medals because there have been allegations made against some soldiers for alleged war crimes. For starters, these are only allegations. One person, so far, only one person actually faces charges, and of course those charges are yet to be heard, not to be proven yet. And yet under this plan, all the other soldiers should wear some shame and receive this punishment. What happened to the presumption of innocence? What happened to people not being smeared with the alleged crimes of others? What happened to the notion that we should honour our soldiers for what they've done, for what they've risked, and keep the politics out of it? I note that the CDF himself, Major General Angus Campbell, was decorated over Afghanistan. He was awarded a Distinguished Service Cross for command and leadership in action while he was heading up Operation Slipper. That is, overseeing our operations in the Middle East, including Afghanistan, in 2011. Well done, Major General, but will you be giving back your decoration? Why should any soldier be stripped of their awards unless they are tried and found guilty of an offence? This is just no way to treat our soldiers and our veterans. Now, there's been a strong reaction to this development. Veterans groups and others have expressed opposition and outrage, and you'll remember we got into it on this program last week.
How this government now handles it will define whether they stand with veterans and their families or whether they stand with an increasingly isolated general. It is an extraordinary example of bad leadership.
Now, back when he was Defence Minister, the now opposition leader Peter Dutton pushed back against this move by the CDF, and now Dutton is calling on Defence Minister Richard Marles to step up.
You can't just go around wanting to be popular with everybody. He's actually got to make decisions, and make decisions in our country's best interests, and support our veterans, not work against them. Don't line up with bureaucratic processes over the interests of the men and women of the Australian Defence Force. These veterans have fought for our country, and they deserve the support of the Defence Minister, and they're not getting it from Richard Marles.
Spot on. Let's bring in Steve Pilmore, who's a veteran, and he's head of the Australian Commando Association. Thanks for joining us, Steve. Appreciate your time. First up, tell us how many soldiers and veterans are facing the possibility of having their medals, their honours stripped.
G'day, Chris. I understand it's seven fairly senior officers who would have been in the position of Special Operations Task Group Commander in Afghanistan.
Then beyond that?
Sorry, say again?
Are you worried that if this goes ahead, there will be even other people whose citations or honours are taken away?
I think that's the issue, Chris. I think if we're putting the cart before the horse and addressing alleged behaviour by people and therefore the responsibility by these senior officers, and as you said before, only one person's been charged with anything that occurred in Afghanistan, then it's got, goodness knows where it would go after that. It's a fairly open book, and it's one which I believe is causing a fair bit of angst. Don't forget, we've already lost more guys to suicide since the Afghan war than we ever lost in combat operations. So it has an ongoing effect, and I don't think this is helping one bit.
Now, it should go without saying, but obviously anybody who's found guilty of a war crime in the field of action, we would all agree with those medals being stripped. But this is the idea of other people completely unassociated with this losing their citations and their honours. What about the CDF himself, Major General Angus Campbell? He has a cross from his time overseeing the operations in Afghanistan. Should he hand that in?
General Campbell, what he does is up to him, Chris. I'm in no position to be giving him advice, but I suspect that if the SOTG commanders are the Special Operations Task Group commanders are held responsible for the behaviour of people a long way down the chain, then it just depends on where you stop the the standard being applied. I guess that's a decision for him, and we would see what happens.
Well, it's just a shocker. I just don't see why anybody should be punished for the actions of others unless they're implicated in it. Just finally, Steve, I wonder if you can just tell us what this is doing to morale, both for those who are still in the services and those who are veterans.
Well, I think it's causing a fair bit of negative discussion, which is pretty sad. My belief is that the guys that I know have always looked up to the senior command groups and would be looking for leadership and inspiration at times like this. As I mentioned a minute ago, the suicide rate for veterans is horrendous, and it's something that we're all working towards, trying to, to do things that'll just take that away. Looking at transitioning from soldiers from defence into civvy jobs, welfare checks by the association, Commando Association, the SS Association. There's things that we can be doing, but this is just not an element that's assisting in any way. It's just adding to the not knowing, and that's where we find our guys in trouble, when they're just not have a grip on what's next.
Yeah, it is a shocker, Steve, even to the families of those soldiers who lost their lives in Afghanistan. It's a blow to them too, because it besmirches everybody who was involved in Afghanistan, and we've got to keep railing against it. Thanks for joining us, Steve Pilmore, who heads up the Australian Commando Association. We'll keep on this case. I know you agree with what should happen here, and that is the soldiers who have been awarded for their service in Afghanistan should not lose that unless they've transgressed